Welcome to the Den of Dissent. This is a show where we challenge the current culture and mainstream talking points of the day. What is the news telling us? What is the culture telling us? Where is our civilization headed? And by what standard do we judge these issues? Do you agree or do you dissent? Let's find out. Evita Solutions. This was this is the FDA approval actually. Let me first read the Constitution. Let's get back to basics. First, well, we always start with the scripture. Scripture clearly condemns murder, right? Just go to the 10 Commandments, okay? We'll start there. We know how God feels about this. We know what God says about life, how God talks about, I knew you in the womb, I formed you in the womb, right? He knows our inward parts, etc. Okay, now let's talk about the Constitution. So some of you may not even be Christians. You may not believe the Bible. Okay. What about the Constitution? What do you think about the Constitution? Is that a standard for law and order, in your opinion? And if so, let's go to the Constitution. And if you don't believe in the Constitution or you don't agree with the Constitution, I would ask you, where do you get your standard of rights from? Where do you, if they don't come from God, you don't believe in the Bible, and you don't subscribe to the Constitution, where do you get your standard of rights from? At that point, I would just say you probably just make it up your own standard of morality, which leads to chaos. But anyway, let's go on. Let's talk about the Constitution and what the Constitution says. So, the Declaration of Independence. Here's my point with this. The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, is a book of human rights. It is talking about the rights that human beings have and how governments can be oppressive. Okay, and it's asserting the rights of individuals and citizens against the government. When the government becomes oppressive towards its citizens and towards human beings, here are some rights, here are some things, right, that the Constitution is saying, is addressing regarding your natural born rights, the rights that God has given you. So let's just start off with the Declaration of Independence. And I'm bringing this up because abortion, right? Abortion is not a right. Abortion goes against the Constitution. It goes against the principles of the Constitution. And the government should be protecting the lives of innocent children. So, and I'm not going to read the whole Constitution, obviously, but I want to drive some points home. So in the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. God has entitled you to certain rights. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. Okay, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such forms. Did you just hear that? They are saying that all men are created equal, and you're endowed by your Creator with certain unalienable rights. These rights can't be taken. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you have an abortion, what are you doing? You're terminating the life of a child. You're taking that child's ability to have a life, to have liberty, and to pursue happiness. You are destroying all prospects of that child's life. They cannot have a life. They will not have liberty, and they will not be able to pursue happiness. That's what you're doing. And this is what the Constitution is addressing. And it's saying all men, all, capital A, capital L, capital L, all men are created equal. And it talks about the creator and nature's God. Okay. And keep in mind that it says that governments are instituted, governments are created among men, deriving their just powers from the consent, meaning I give my consent to the government, right? Governments are instituted to secure your rights, to protect you. This is why you have government, why we have government, why you say you get into a contract with the government and say, hey, I have certain things that I want to protect. You want to get into this contract together and work together where this is your job. You just make sure nobody's stealing from me. If they are, I hope that you prosecute them. Okay? We get into a relationship with each other. Protect my rights. Let me do my job as a human being. You do your job. Let's get into this contract together. Now, if you can't do that job, then I'm sorry, I have to walk away. This is the whole purpose of government. And then it goes on to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. Question for you: has the government become destructive of these ends? What are these ends? To protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and securing our rights. This is why government is instituted. Has the government become destructive of these ends? Is this not an example of how the government has become destructive of these ends? By promoting an abortion pill, by putting an abortion pill on the market that takes the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness from a child, away from them, an innocent child. And not only that, that drug can kill the woman as well. Is that not an example of the government becoming destructive to these ends? Yes, absolutely. Let me go on. Read some more of the Constitution. Sorry, I got to give you a little Constitution lesson. Quick, I'll make it quick. I'm going to put a nice pretty bow on this, even though the subject is not pretty at all. Okay, the preamble to the Constitution says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Again, the founders were talking about forming a more perfect union, establish justice. Where's the justice in taking the life of an innocent child through abortion? There's no justice there. Okay. Ensure domestic tranquility, peace. Where is the peace in the federal government putting an abortion pill on the market so that women can take the lives of innocent children? How is that tranquility? Common defense, promoting the general welfare. Where's the welfare of the child? Securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. You know what posterity means? Posterity means future generations. You can't have a future generation if you take the life of a child. The posterity is done. It's been wiped out. Generations have been wiped out through abortion. Okay? And this is how the government becomes destructive to these ends. The Trump administration has approved an abortion pill that is becoming destructive to these ends. Okay, let's go on. We want to talk about amendment. Let's get to the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. It says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or other infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense, to be twice put in jeopardy of life and limb, nor shall, okay, hear this part, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Do you hear this? This is all about human rights, the Constitution. It's all about human rights. The Bible talks about humanity as well, okay? Do you see the focus on the human right in the Constitution? You shall not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. When you take the life of a child through abortion, you are stripping that child of the due process of law. That means that that child has no rights. You have played judge, jury, and executioner. You have sentenced that child to death. And that child hasn't been given due process of law. That is complete tyranny. Let's go on to the 15th Amendment. That's the last part I'll read from the Constitution. It says, from the 15th Amendment, I'm sorry, from the 14th Amendment, the 14th Amendment. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Do you hear that? Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. There you go. The Constitution forbids and criminalizes abortion. No person. See, the problem is a lot of people don't look at babies as people. You don't think a baby is a person. That's the problem. For whatever reason, I don't understand. I mean, that's a complete contradiction. I don't understand that right there. But yeah, that's what the Constitution says. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the rights that God gave you. And this is what abortion does. It strips the human being of those rights. Babies are human beings. A lot of people have a twisted view on humanity and what they think humanity is. That's why God had to set a standard through scripture, giving us commands and orders. He had to list things out for us. And he did that in the 10 Commandments and throughout scripture. But he had to do that. He had to put it on a tablet so you could know clearly, because human beings were just screwing up from the dawn of time. So he had to say, all right, let me put this in plain writing. And it is in plain writing. So this just goes against the human heart because, a lot of people just want to do what they do. But don't come back to me and say that, the Constitution doesn't, it doesn't talk about abortion and a woman has the right to choose and all that. Yeah, you have some freedoms. You have the right to choose certain things, but you don't have the right to take another person's life. That baby is protected. And it's funny that a lot of people try to argue on the basis of rights, but then go ahead and violate the rights of human beings. Babies are the human beings that I'm talking about. Okay? Again, I want you to understand Roe v. Wade was just a court opinion. That's all it was. It was not a law. Congress makes laws. That's what the Constitution says as well. And a lot of people, a lot of states have just been operating on opinions. You have made an opinion a law. Okay? Now, how much clearer can it get? Let's go on to the second article that I wanted to touch on. And this is where the agenda gets a little deeper, because there's a point to all of this. from the government. I want you to see the reason why abortion is still legal and you just can't knock it off. You just can't get rid of it, right? It just always has to be available and legal. Why? Why does the federal government keep abortion alive, regardless of who the president is? I'm going to show you why. Let's get into the second article. Let's see. This article is also by the New American. She doubles down. It's called, well, I'm going to double down. It's called FDA approves new generic abortion pill. Okay, it says the FDA and Food and Drug Administration has approved the new generic version of miprostone. It's the 200 milligram abortion pill used with misoprostol to terminate early pregnancies. The drug produced by Evita Solutions is authorized for the use through 70 days of gestation, making it the second generic version of miprostone. So I guess there's another generic version allowed on the U.S. market. In its approval letter, the agency stated that Evita's tablets are the bioequivalent and therapeutically equivalent to Mifeprex, the brand name product made by Danco Laboratories. According to the FDA, adequate information has been presented to demonstrate that the drug meets the requirements for the approval under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Evita's product falls under miprestone's risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, a federal safety program governing the prescription and dispensing of abortion drugs. The FDA required the REMS to be fully operational before the drug enters interstate commerce. It limits distribution to certified prescribers and pharmacies and requires patients to sign risk acknowledgments. When the FDA says it has to be fully operational before the drug enters interstate commerce, what does fully operational mean exactly? I mean, if the drug is terminating the life of a child and harming the mother, what does operational mean? How much more operational can it get? If that's the definition of operational, then I don't know if I want that operation. Let's go on. The decision has reignited the moral and political fight over abortion. Pro-life groups and some Republican lawmakers condemn the approval as a betrayal. They warn that expanded chemical abortion access undermines both medical safety and human dignity. Over 2/3 of all U.S. abortions now occur through medication, and the number continues to rise. Let me stop there. So I didn't know this. Most abortions are occurring through medical means. So it's not like the woman is going to the clinic and the doctor's removing the child that way. From my research and my understanding, this is happening through pills, and you can look up the Guttmacher Institute. I'll put the articles in the video, but you can look that up and see that I think it's like 63% of abortions are being done through chemical abortions, through medication. I thought once Roe v. Wade was overturned that the number of abortions were reduced. Wasn't that the whole point, right? Wasn't that something that the Trump administration was touting? He was applauding the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned and that, we were heading in a pro-life direction. The lives of children, more lives of children would be saved. I've seen some articles saying that as well. So approving this drug just cancels all of that out. It invalidates all of the bragging about Roe v. Wade. It just demolishes it. It goes against the very thing that was pledged on, the principles that were promoted in the Trump administration regarding being pro-life. Okay. What the drug does? Evita Solutions, whose mission is to, quote, normalize abortion, states on its website that its newly approved product is used in combination with misoprostol for safe, effective medical abortion. Let's just click on the link to Evita Solutions. I'll just read you a little bit. I'm not going to go into super big details about Evita Solutions, but here's their website. It says, "We know reproductive rights are human rights." Again, that's a huge contradiction. Reproductive rights, Do you see how they change up the language? A reproductive right. What are you talking about reproductive? There's no reproduction when you terminate the life of a child. And you don't have the right to take the life of somebody else. But you see how they switch up the language and they use some nice pretty words to mask murder? Because that's what it is, y'all. That's what it is. Straight murder. It's death. Okay? Human rights. They want to talk about human rights. Where's the human right in abortion? Really? Anyway, it says medical abortion care is rife with medically unnecessary restrictions and social stigma in the United States. As a result, many people who choose to end a pregnancy may struggle to get the necessary care they need. Evita Solutions believes that all people should have access to safe, affordable, high quality, effective, and compassionate health care, including abortion care. We know that you can make the best choice for your body. So you can go onto their website. You can read about their mission, the safety information. Look at this. It has the warning label on the website. Warning, serious and sometimes fatal infections or bleeding. But right above that, they're talking about reproductive rights and human rights and all of this, right? They're promoting humanity and life. But when you go down, you see the warning label talking about sometimes fatal infections or bleeding. This is what these drugs do. Let's go back to the article. Now, Evita Solutions was the company that put this pill on the market, right? And the federal government has allowed Evita to put this pill on the market. And we already saw what the mission was from Evita Solutions. We see what that is. The federal government approves of this mission, in my opinion. They're doing business with this company. Okay, let's go. Mifepristone, sometimes called the abortion pill or RU486, works by blocking progesterone, a hormone necessary to maintain pregnancy. Without progesterone, the uterine lining breaks down, ending the embryo's viability. A second drug, misoprostol, is taken within 24 to 48 hours afterwards. It causes uterine contractions that expel the pregnancy tissue and forming a human life with it. When used together in the recommended sequence, the regimen is about 97% effective in ending early intrauterine pregnancies. The combination has been approved for medical use in the U.S. since 2000. However, the FDA's approval has been repeatedly challenged in courts. Most recently, the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine versus FDA case sought to revoke or restrict its approval. Yet the Supreme Court in June 2024 unanimously upheld access. Get that. They upheld access to the abortion pill, ruling that the plaintiffs lacked legal standing to sue. Okay, so the Supreme Court, the pro-life Supreme Court, and well, some of them, the justices, the pro-life justices that were hired to be put on that court in the Trump administration that we were told were going to be pro-life, and they overturned Roe v. Wade, and they're pro-life, whatever. They struck this down. They upheld access to this abortion pill. And from my understanding, from reading some of the case, their reason was that the organization, Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, they wanted to remove these pills off the market because they felt they were unsafe. They cause complications in the mother's body. They can lead to fatal consequences. They can potentially kill the mother. Okay. That's one of the reasons why they went to court for this case. Now, the Supreme Court struck it down because they said, well, you guys don't have standing because you're not consuming the drugs yourselves. You haven't been impacted directly from the drug, and you're not suing on behalf of someone directly. You don't have a defendant that you've brought to court that has taken this drug. So you don't have standing. You're basically suing on behalf of the whole country, or you're just suing because you want this drug to be taken off the market because that's what you see fit. But you don't have direct ties to this drug. You haven't consumed it yourself, and you're not suing for someone who's consumed it yourself. You can go read the the case, read about the case, the court decision. But from my understanding, that's why they said they dismissed the case and they upheld access for the pill. Now, this organization is looking at the studies. They're looking at, maybe they're just looking at the fact that this is an abortion pill and it's terminating the life of a child. Why can't that be enough? I mean, after all, I just read, portions of the Constitution to you, right? And the Supreme Court is supposed to interpret the Constitution. You would think that maybe the Supreme Court would say, you know what? This abortion pill probably should be taken off the market because it violates the principles of the Constitution. And we are the Supreme Court. Our job is to interpret the Constitution in a way that falls in line and that is consistent with the principles of the Constitution and the founders, right? No, they upheld access to the abortion pill. Let's go on some more. She talks about safety and warnings regarding this pill. So she says the drug that is nearly 100% lethal for an unborn child is widely promoted as safe for mothers. Yet both Evita and the FDA acknowledge that mifepristone carries serious medical risks, some of which can be fatal. The product labeling bears a boxed warning, the FDA's strongest alert, including the following. Serious and sometimes fatal infections and bleeding occur very rarely following spontaneous surgical and medical abortions, including following mifepristone's tablets, 200 milligrams use. I like how she said the drug that is nearly 100% lethal for an unborn child is widely promoted as safe for mothers. How does that make sense, y'all? How does it make sense? They're saying it's safe and effective, right? But yet it takes the life of a child, but it's safe and effective. Do you see the agenda? Do you see? Because that is what they consider safe and effective. That tells you the agenda right there. It's effective in doing the job that they believe in, and they believe in abortion. It's safe and effective. Abortion, it's safe and effective. Okay, let's go on. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little dramatic. It says the company urges patients to seek immediate medical attention for heavy bleeding, fever, severe abdominal pain, or signs of infection. Common complications include prolonged bleeding without 1% of women requiring surgical intervention, sepsis, and rare but deadly bacterial infections such as Clostridium sordelli. There are contraindications for women with ectopic pregnancy, adrenal failure, bleeding disorders, or allergies to mifepristone or misoprostol. Other reactions include nausea, weakness, chills, and vomiting. Why would you even want to take this drug after reading all these side effects? It's like when you watch these commercials and they say, oh, yeah, and they have guys running through open fields with pretty grass and, they're promoting a drug in the background. And then at the end of the commercial, it gets to the warnings. This drug may cause heart attack, failure, and death, and, disease, destruction, Great Depressions, and, bad economy, just all types of craziness, right? So why would you even want to take that drug after all that? Anyway, let's go on. Administration reacts. Facing backlash from conservatives and pro-life groups, the White House defended the FDA's approval of a second generic mifepristone as a bureaucratic obligation. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters on Friday that the move was not an endorsement of this drug. She stressed that the FDA and the Department of Health and Human Services were simply following the law. That's what you remember the Holocaust when they brought some of the soldiers to trial during I think it was Nuremberg, and that was one of the things that they said as far as why they terminated the Jews was, well, we were following orders. I'm not calling Caroline Leavitt a Nazi or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there has to come a time when you stand on principle and you don't, and if the order is unbiblical and if the order is evil, you speak out against the order, following the law. The law is not always good. The law is supposed to be good, but there are bad laws. Slavery was legal at one point. Abortion is legal. So that's an example right there. Anyway, quote, she says, by law, the Secretary of Health and Human Services must approve a generic drug application if the application demonstrates the generic drug is the same as the brand name drug. So they're approving because that's what the law says. The law says you got to approve this generic drug if it's the same as the brand name drug. Why haven't they disallowed the brand name drug? Why haven't they taken the brand name drug off the market? And so they're just following procedures. Oh, well, the law says that we got to approve the generic brand because, it's the same as the brand name drug. So we got to follow the law. We got to follow procedure. Doubling down on abortion instead of just taking the drug off the market, despite all the black box warnings, despite all the terminal fatal consequences and effects that this pill might have on the woman, on the mother. No, we got to follow the law. We got to follow order. That's what's being said. We got to follow this. Let me play you the clip of Caroline Levitt actually saying this. It might be you might not. There might be some background noise, but just hear her response to this.
On the FDA, they just approved that new abortion pill, and it's causing a lot of uproar among Republicans. What is the president's response to that, and does the administration plan to have that FDA approved?
Well, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy, has put out several statements on this. The HHS's decision, it's not an endorsement of this drug by any means. They are just simply following the law. And as they put out in their statement, by law, the Secretary of Health and Human Services must approve a generic drug application if the application demonstrates the generic drug is the, quote, same as the brand name drug. Generic applicants are not required to submit independent evidence proving safety and effectiveness. As such, FDA's decision to approve a second generic version does not address the merits of the current safety program. HHS is reviewing adverse effects to ensure the FDA's required safety program for the drug is sufficient to protect women. This safety review equally applies to generic versions of this drug. So FDA and HHS are following the law. It's, again, not an endorsement of the drug itself.
So she said it's not an endorsement of the drug itself. Okay? It's not. How is that not an endorsement of the drug? I don't understand that. So they're putting the drug on the market, but they're saying that they're not endorsing it. I don't know. It's all legal speak. It's all legal jargon. They're following the laws. It's just legal jargon. They're following the orders. That's it. But we don't endorse it. We don't endorse the pill. Yeah, we're putting the pill out. We're creating we're allowing this generic pill that terminates the life of a child to be on the market, but we don't endorse it. We're the federal government. We can strike down certain things. We can, with the stroke of a pen, make things happen. We can blow up boats in Venezuela and terminate you on sight with the stroke of a pen. Right? But we're not endorsing violence. We're not do you see where this is going? Do you see what I'm saying? It's just cover. It's cover. They're saying that they don't endorse the pill, but yet they allow a company that creates the pill to get into contract to put this pill on the market. The federal government could have easily said no. When you say yes to something, you endorse it. When you say no to something, you don't endorse it. Okay, you're taking a stand. So what do you mean you're not endorsing it? That makes no sense. Yes, you are endorsing it. You have the authority to strike it down. The federal government does things on a whim all the time. They strike things down all the time. Okay? They endorse things and they don't endorse things. They draw clear lines about where they want to stand when they want to take a position on an issue all the time. They make endorsements and they don't make endorsements. They're dancing. That's what they're doing here. Anyway, let's go on. Indeed, under Section 505 of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, the FDA is required to approve a generic drug once it proves bioequivalence and therapeutic sameness to the reference product. In practice, the agency has almost no discretion to deny such approval. The only exceptions are technical. They include an incomplete application, unresolved patent, or exclusivity barriers, or credible new safety data about the reference drug itself. HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy said, I didn't read this. He says in a statement on X that the FDA's approval occurred because of procedural necessity, following orders, right? Follow the law. He added that Joe Biden's administration had earlier removed mifepristone's in-person dispensing rule without studying the safety risks. He pledged to correct that. So he's going to correct that. You should be able. Biden was a little lax as far as getting this pill, but he's going to correct that. He says, the article says, interestingly, the public record contradicts Kennedy's claim. The FDA's own materials show that the agency, for what it's worth, conducted a comprehensive review of the published literature and other relevant safety and adverse event data before changing the dispensing rules. So the FDA and Kennedy are having a little squabble on that claim. Okay, it says, in September, Kennedy and FDA Commissioner Marty Makary announced they'd launch a review to re-examine the drug's safety framework. So let's see if that happens. The administration's posture, technically correct, politically evasive, fits a familiar pattern. When the science is inconvenient, it becomes procedural. When the politics are volatile, the process becomes the shield. Behind the language of regulation lies a deeper story that began in the last century when population control became part of public policy. So I'm going to wrap this up soon, but this is where I want to go. This is where this leads to. Understand what she just said. She said behind the language of regulation, the orders, the law that they have to follow, lies a deeper story. What is that deeper story that began in the last century? It is population control. Population control is part of public policy. Do you understand that? It is public policy to control the population through abortion, through different types of chemicals, through toxic things. It is public policy is what she's saying. This is why this abortion issue never goes away. The abortion always continues to creep in to public policy and be part of every administration. Well, I shouldn't say every. Well, then again, I don't know. When has abortion been banned? Can you give me a president that has banned abortion or a time when abortion has been banned in this country? Or when a president hasn't allowed for it? It has become public policy. The Planned Parenthood has gotten dollars from the federal government. Why would an organization that carries out abortion and that believes in family planning, that was founded by Margaret Sanger, get money from the federal government? Which is unconstitutional as well, because there's nowhere in the Constitution where it talks about the federal government getting involved with family planning. Anyway, and getting involved with the organization that's, it was founded by a woman who believed in eugenics. Okay, so let's get to this very crucial part. Mifepristone and population control. The story of mifepristone in America is deeply tied to the population control movement that emerged in the early 20th century and expanded globally by mid-century. Long before the drug reached the U.S. market, private foundations, international nonprofits, and public health agencies were funding research aimed at limiting birth rates, especially in the developing world and among poor and minority populations in the United States. Limiting birth rates among the world's poor and minority populations in the United States. Black people, you're considered a minority. Do you hear that? Some of these limiting birth rate agendas through abortion and population control, they were developed to limit your population and the poor population. That is what's being said in this article. This is why this worldview of eugenics came to be. It was for population control, yes, but it also included the minority population and people that were poor. Okay? Go read about Margaret Sanger. Anyway, she goes on to say, among the most influential players was the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefellers, billionaire class, money on top of money on top of money. Okay. The Rockefeller Foundation, whose funding and policy initiatives helped shape the modern framework for what became known as reproductive medicine. There's no reproduction in abortion. In 1952, the foundation seeded the Population Council, a New York-based nonprofit dedicated to fertility regulation and contraceptive development. For decades, the council promoted family planning programs across the globe, working with national governments and the United Nations. So you can click on this article here, and it talks about the Rockefeller founds the Population Council. Why would billionaires, the Rockefeller family, why would billionaires be concerned about a growing population? Or why would they want to be involved in limiting a population? It says the Population Council, founded on November 7, 1952 by John D. Rockefeller III, is an influential organization dedicated to addressing global population challenges. Established in New York City, the council emerged from the Rockefellers' awareness of the rapid population growth in underdeveloped nations and its potential impact on economic and environmental stability. With backing from prominent scientists and experts in various fields, the council aimed to foster research and public education on population issues, emphasizing that population control measures were essential for improving the lives of the poor and ensuring sustainable development. Do you hear that? Population control measures. Well, what would those measures be? Those measures would be, obviously, abortion, limiting population. How do you do that? Well, you got to terminate the life of your innocent child in your womb to limit the population. Why would billionaires like the Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller family, be so concerned about that? Because it's going to have an impact on humanity as you're taking a life, as you're taking humanity away through abortion and limiting humanity. You're trying to promote humanity. I don't get it. It's all a contradiction. That's what it's about, population control. Anyway, let's go on some more. Here's a link to the Population Council as well. And again, it's the nice, fuzzy, warm language that these organizations use. Here's the Population Council's website. Ideas, evidence, impact. It says an equitable and sustainable future for everyone, everywhere. We transform global thinking on critical health and development issues through social science, public health, and biomedical research. Okay, so you can read about their agendas here. Talks about women's empowerment and contraception in low and middle income countries. So what about rich people or people with money that have high income? What about them? Do they get this same message sent to them? Because they're focusing on the poor and the minorities as if minorities and poor people are the only people that have children and that populate the earth. So wealthy people don't have children? I don't get it. Or you just want to get rid of poor people and minorities? I don't know. You want to limit their population? Okay. Next article. It says when the French pharmaceutical firm Roussel Uclaf developed RU486 in the early 1980s, the Population Council became the key U.S. conduit for its testing and eventual approval. In 1994, Roussel Uclaf transferred the U.S. marketing rights for mifepristone to the council. 3 years later, in 1997, the council granted those rights to Danco Laboratories. The company still manufactures and distributes the brand name Mifeprex. So again, the Population Council, which the Rockefellers funded and seeded, okay, became the key U.S. conduit for its testing and eventual approval of this drug, RU486. So the Rockefellers, they're putting their money into action right there. I thought that was interesting. Actually, let me click on this article. I thought this was this is not the article right here. We'll go on further. It says during that same period, media reports indicated that the Rockefeller Foundation assisted China's state-owned Hualian Pharmaceutical in meeting FDA standards to produce mifepristone for export, a move intended to expand availability of the drug. 25 years later, it remains to be seen whether the Kennedy-McCarry review will change that agenda. Again, during that same period, media reports indicated the Rockefeller Foundation assisted China's state-owned Hualin Pharmaceutical in meeting FDA standards to produce mifepristone. So the Rockefellers, they got involved with getting China to have this drug meet the FDA standards to produce this abortion pill. Why do they care about this? And they wanted that to be exported to the U.S. because China was doing it. We've heard the stories about China having population control, believing in population control and their child policy. You can only have a certain amount of kids, etc. And the Rockefellers get involved with China. The Rockefellers are supposed to be these big capitalists, doing business with communists, getting a drug in China approved or to meet the FDA standards. Just think about that in itself. Like, that sounds crazy to me. That's a whole nother rabbit hole we could probably go down. But I did want to bring this article up. This is by ABC. This was in 2000. It's by ABC News, October 12, 2000. RU486 manufacturer disclosed. RU486, the abortion pill or chemical. Beijing, October 12th, a leading Chinese pharmaceutical company that has made the abortion pill RU486 for at least 7 years will manufacture the drug for the U.S. market, officials said today. The China link adds to the controversy that has suffered RU486 hotly contested entry into the United States. Anti-abortion campaigners who fought for 8 years to keep the pill off the U.S. market have criticized China's widespread use of abortion, some of them forced to limit family size. The U.S. Drug Administration approved the pill 2 weeks ago for U.S. consumption, but did not disclose the manufacturer's identity and location because of safety and security concerns. The drug distributor in the United States, Danco Laboratories, has also refused to identify the company. The Hualin Pharmaceutical Company, based in eastern city of Shanghai, has been contracted to make the raw compound in RU486, mifepristone, for export to the United States, company executives and Shanghai family planning officials said. While Lian got help from the U.S.-based Rockefeller Foundation in winning the production license for 486 under FDA specifications, said Gao Ershing, a research director at the Shanghai Family Planning Commission. You can go on to read this article. So again, the Rockefeller Foundation funded, or they were involved with helping this drug get exported to the U.S. It just shows you the extent that they would go to get this over to the U.S. Now, remember, that's the year 2000. So who was president in the year 2000? That was George Bush, right? If I'm not mistaken, that was George Bush, October 12th, 2000. Yeah, that was George Bush. Did George Bush ever strike that pill down? Did he ever remove it from the market? George W. Bush, I'm sorry. And, I remember back then around that time, that was around the time when I was when I first voted, actually. I think I voted for George W. Bush. And then, I found out about the Bush family and kind of changed my whole worldview on politics. But so I was taught that George W. Bush was pro-life, right? I remember during that time, there was like a national fervor. There was a lot of backing behind Christian conservatives and pastors talking about George W. Bush and the pro-life movement, et cetera. And little did I know that under his administration, this pill was approved. This RU-486 pill was approved. And I remember hearing about George Bush being super pro-life and promoting pro-life agenda, but what did his administration do regarding this pill that the Rockefellers were involved with exporting, this RU-486? So this has been going on since the 2000s, since 2000, and it continues. And this is the point that she is making in this article. She's saying that 25 years later, it remains to be seen whether Kennedy and McCarry will review. The Kennedy-McCarry review will challenge that agenda. She is saying in this article that regardless of the administration, this is an agenda that continues. It goes on. It transcends presidential candidates. She says, the story of milestones in America is deeply tied to the population control movement that emerged in the early 20th century and expanded globally by mid-century. Okay? So it goes on from administration to administration, and we're told that this administration is pro-life and, this administration is going to stop abortion and save the babies and all of this. But this agenda continues on. That's why I believe it's spiritual. I think it's satanic at its heart. And it doesn't stop. It continues. So again, the Trump administration has approved this generic bill this generic pill. And from what I've read, this is the second generic pill that has been approved. There was a video that I wanted to play you. Anyway, I've done too much. I was going to play you a video from a doctor who was talking about what this pill does to women. But I'm just going to spare you. I've already read you, 2 articles, and I've shown you. I've went to the website for the manufacturer. So you get the point. You know what the pill does. But I'll provide articles so you can read further about this. And let me just play you President Trump's speech that he gave on abortion. Again, when he first, I think when he was elected. Let me see. Let me pull this article up.
Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended. It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith. Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country and vote. So important to vote. This 50-year battle over Roe v. Wade took it out of the federal hands and brought it into the hearts, minds, and vote of the people in each state. It was really something. Now it's up to the states to do the right thing. Like Ronald Reagan, I am strongly in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. You must follow your heart on this issue, but remember, you must also win elections to restore our culture and, in fact, to save our country, which is currently, and very sadly, a nation in decline. Our nation needs help. It needs unity. It needs us all to work closely together. Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, everyone, we have to work together. We have to bring our nation back from the brink, and that's where it is. It's at.
So Trump is saying that, you should follow your heart. He's talking about the states that have implement or that allow for abortion and states that don't allow for abortion. Okay, and he's saying follow your heart, do what you see fit. Listen, when it comes to Roe versus Wade, again, I'll stress this again. What he's saying is that we overturn Roe versus Wade. So instead of an opinion being a law across the United States that says, hey, you want to terminate the life of your child, you can do so. All Roe versus Wade or the overturning of Roe v. Wade did was say, what he's saying is that we overturned it. It's now in the states' hands. That's a great thing. So now the states can decide whether or not they want to terminate the life of innocent children. Or, if the people vote on it and the people want to decide that, hey, you want to terminate the life of your innocent children? Now you have the freedom to do so. Before, you didn't have the freedom to do so because the Supreme Court's opinion overruled all of the states. But now states can determine that right if they see fit. It's in the state hands, and we overturn that. So again, if you want to terminate the life of your children, your innocent children, you can do that, states. It's in your hands. Like, I don't know if I think that that's something to necessarily, brag about, because the life of innocent children or the lives of innocent children is still going to be terminated. Like, clearly the Constitution, I've read you several portions from it. It is saying that the life of the person should be protected, and it falls in line with the Constitution. And the Constitution, from my understanding, was the supreme law of the land. I think God's law is higher, obviously, but the Constitution is the law of the land, and it mentions God, obviously. So that's what that is. Anyway, I think Donald Trump is flip-flopped on abortion. He's obviously in favor of abortion in cases of rape and incest and things like that, which it's still abortion. You shouldn't terminate an innocent life because an injustice occurred against a woman. You don't punish the innocent person, which is the child, right? For what? What are you punishing the innocent child for? Anyway, so that's Trump's speech that he made. Let's see, when was that? That was 2024. That was a year ago. So yeah, but we know where he stands now because the FDA has put this abortion pill on the market. So has he betrayed pro-lifers with this abortion pill? Has he betrayed pro-lifers? Abortion is still legal, and this pill, from my understanding, will be allowed in all states. You can get the pill. I was looking in my state, and from what I read from, I think it was Planned Parenthood's website, or I don't know if it was a state website. I think it was Planned Parenthood's. You can get the pill. So what was all this pro-life talk about? What was it for? It was all for naught. Like, I don't get it. It's just a big head fake. A huge contradiction. What makes this administration any different from a liberal administration? Because liberals, I thought, they were pro-choice. They promote abortion. They're okay with that. What makes this administration so conservative? We could start on the constitutionality of the FDA. Where does the Constitution give the federal government to have a food and drug administration to begin with? Where? Okay, so that's not constitutional. Conservatives promote the Constitution. So that's just one example right there of a lack of conservatism. Conservatism means conserving. Where's the conservating? Where's the conservation or the conserving of human lives? There's no conserving when you're promoting abortion pills and you legalize the abortion pill. So as far as I'm concerned, Trump has backtracked on abortion. I don't really think he was super pro-life. I mean, I don't know. He's just, to me, he doesn't really have an ideology. He's back and forth. He's like, whichever way the wind is flowing at the time, I think that's where he goes. Sorry. I mean, I say that respectfully, but yeah, we're the pro-lifers. I want to hear the pro-lifers talk about this. I want to see the outrage. Where's the outrage regarding this? Abortion is still in full effect in the Trump administration. There is no pro-life when an abortion pill has been approved by Trump's administration, Trump's FDA. Trump supports abortion. That is what his administration has approved of. Anyway, that's my show for today. And lastly, keep in mind, this is an agenda of eugenics. It goes on from administration to administration, okay? That's why it never stops. It's a spiritual thing. At its heart, it's a satanic thing. Anyway, that's my word for today. That's today's show. God bless. Keep praying. Get involved. Pray for your president. Pray for everybody. Pray for your loved ones. Pray for your family. Pray for your leaders. Pray for your county, your city, your states, your nation. Pray for the world as well. That's what I got for today, y'all. God bless. Peace. Do some researching.